Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Pundits podcast. Thanks for tuning in wherever you may be listening from. As always, timestamps will be down below in the description if you are watching on YouTube, and we will try and leave timestamps on other platforms too. Make sure you drop us a follow wherever you're listening from, drop us a like, drop us a rating, and let's get into it.
Guess who's back? We're here again, boys.
Here we are again.
After what was, unfortunately, a bit of a procession up front in the F1 yesterday, wasn't it? We finally...
It's a lights out and away we go. And Lewis Hamilton has pretty much won already.
That's literally what it was. Basically, as soon as he got past turn one, like into turn one in the lead, he wasn't going to lose it, was he? He was just...
No.
I mean, that's the problem with Spain. There's not too many overtaking opportunities, and when you're as dominant as Hamilton looked yesterday,
there were some cool. The overtakes that were there though were good.
Yeah, we'll get into them, but it's a shame with Catalonia because you want to see more of a battle up front.
Yeah, I think as well. Like people, they didn't want to push too hard, just because it was so hot. The track temps were so high. You know, especially because quite a lot of the teams have had cooling issues already in tracks that were nowhere near as hot as that. You know, a lot of teams in Hungary had cooling problems. I think Renault specifically had quite a few issues with cooling.
Well, they have a lot of issues anyway.
Yeah, but they just have issues. You know, teams were trying to preserve the tyres and not overheat their brakes and engines too much. But yeah, I think it was not underwhelming weekend, but it was exactly what we knew was going to happen.
I wouldn't call it underwhelming. I'd call it just how dominant Lewis Hamilton is in this Mercedes.
Yeah, I think as soon as he secured pole position and he knew that basically as long as he didn't mess up his start off the line and ended up going into turn one in first place, he's got pretty much an entire track's worth of clean air in front of him, and he could just go. That's where Lewis, I think, Lewis is really good at coming from behind. Don't get me wrong, but
we've seen him do it before, but
that's where he shines once he gets into, because he can manage the race. If people think he's just out front driving and it's super easy because he hasn't got overtaken or anything like that, but it's not just that. He manages the race, his own race, so well from the front. I don't think that's where, for me, his technical racing ability shines. Some of the most for me is how much he shines when he's out front.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone who can manage a race from the front, especially on these, especially nowadays with the way you have to manage your tires because of all the different compounds, all of this. You know, it wasn't as hard in the old days. It was just a bit of prime, but the way that he can do it is second to none. You know, he basically plays cat and mouse with anyone that's behind him. He'll look like he's coming back to them. He'll know where the gap is. He never, when the car's working, the tires working, he'll keep them in the first stint just outside of DRS. Then before he comes in, he'll push, and that's what you saw yesterday when Verstappen's tires fell off. Hamilton then pulled out like a 6 to 8 second gap from nowhere. He was only like 1 second for the first 10 to 15 laps. He was only a second up, and then it just exploded out because Verstappen, who was very, very agitated yesterday in that
he was
cockpit,
not happy.
No, and I think it's a combination of frustration because he knows how quick he is, and we all know how quick he is, but it's also seeing how easy it was for Hamilton, how good.
Yeah, I think he made a good point though in some of his communications with the pit wall team was when he said, "Look, we can't catch them. Like he's too far. Lewis is we can't catch him.
He knew.
Let's just focus on our race.
That's not
and let Lewis do his thing because we can't. You know, he's pretty much accepted at that point. The gap's too big.
Exactly.
There's not many overtaking opportunities in Catalonia, and he said, let's just focus on our race because there wasn't really much of a threat from Bottas behind, but at that stage in the race, they were still worrying about Bottas behind, and I think that was quite a mature stance to take from Max and to say, forget them. Not saying we're giving up, but it's out of our hands to catch Lewis now.
Yeah.
Let's just focus on getting as high up the standings as we can. And I think that was a very mature stance to take from Max. And obviously Lewis has gone now, breaking records again, the most podiums in F1 history now.
We don't talk about Lewis Hamilton much because we're just numb to how good he really is.
Well, it was a weekend of records really because Hamilton most podiums. Sebastian Vettel 3,000 points. Yeah. I think Kimi Räikkönen was 5
most distance.
How many miles was it? It was crazy.
86,000. It still might have been 68,000. I know those two numbers were involved, but it was a weekend of records. But like I was saying, with Hamilton, I never thought when Michael Schumacher retired initially in 2006, with the 91 race victories, the 155 podiums, I think it was, I don't know how many poles it was, but it was, he had all the records, and I was like,
yeah,
no one's ever going to beat that. And this was when I was a young kid, no one ever thought anyone was going to do this, and then Hamilton's going to get them all.
You see,
he's going to have them all.
It's such a thing in sport, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where across all sports, where records are there, and so especially if they stand for a long time, people just think that's it, that's the record, and it can never be beaten.
Mm-hmm. Especially something that was so far apart, which Michael was with 91.
Yeah, I think in like the modern era of F1, no one had that dominance. Obviously, you look back and you can talk about your Fangios and people like that.
Senna's,
and I mean, like that's the cars in Prost and Senna's era were fast, but obviously with the modern aero and things like that, I mean, Michael was like, when he finished, he was just into that generation of the truly modern cars.
Yeah.
And obviously now we've got these ultra modern cars, but I think, like you said, nobody anticipated in the modern era of F1 that anyone would ever come close to Michael's records, ever.
I didn't even know if anyone could beat it in the future. You can't predict the future, but I didn't think he was going to get this close, and he's now 3 victories from tying.
When did you think? This is probably going slightly off topic in that, we're not really talking about the race weekend now, but obviously Lewis's rookie year was
2007.
Obviously insane. As a rookie year, it's just phenomenal. But for you, I know you've watched Formula One for a long time, longer than I've, because obviously I didn't, I watched it as a kid, in the Schumacher era and such. But
first race I remember, 2002 Suzuka. That's the first race.
I kind of fell off it a bit when I was when I grew up, and I kind of just I got into my rugby and things like that. But I know you've watched. When for you did you think Lewis Hamilton's going to be a superstar?
Pretty much from day one. When you first saw him go against Fernando Alonso and take him, see the panic realistically in Fernando Alonso. Like, I don't know, coming off being a 2-time world champion, then going to McLaren, you're thinking, well, this is going to be a cakewalk. And then Hamilton coming in and basically just essentially having a man-on-man, kind of a challenge, ego challenge, come on then, are you better than me? And he almost did. He almost won it in his first year, which still would have been insane. But he basically made a 2-time world champion, he basically emasculated him in a way. He just completely took him out of his game, took him out of everything. You remember the tactic in Hungary when Alonso basically stopped Hamilton from getting out his final lap. And I don't know, I just think he's always looked like being a superstar. He was at McLaren for those couple of years, and now he's at Mercedes. Yeah. And him and Toto have just built this dynasty. I think
when you just put a dominant driver in a dominant car, it's just impossible.
You've literally put the best driver
if he gets pole and he comes out of turn 1 in first place, I just think in this season, unless he crashes or has an unrecoverable mechanical failure, if those two things happen, doesn't even get pole. If he goes into turn 1 in first place, it's over.
He's just a different level, and I do think now, I think we can clearly say that Verstappen is probably the second.
Oh yeah,
second
this
driver
season,
closest to him.
I don't know. I know we kind of agree on this, that I think Bottas, he's gonna have to be thinking.
Jury's out.
Well, if he says, if I don't, because realistically, looking at how much faster Hamilton's car is than Verstappen, do you think Bottas should be coming second place every week?
It should be a 1-2
in
Mercedes.
Qualies, they're just destroying all the other time.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that Bottas isn't getting ahead of Verstappen, when he came out on softs this weekend, he just couldn't make up the time on brand new set of softs when Verstappen was on mediums.
Exactly.
And I think you must be thinking, if he can't perform the rest of this season and he doesn't perform next season, I think George Russell's probably thinking, well, his contract's up next year.
That seat's looking tasty.
Yeah, well, I think if Bottas doesn't perform next season, and we don't see very much of him in terms of, I think it's more of a battle between Bottas and Verstappen. If Bottas doesn't consistently beat Verstappen, I don't think Mercedes will be happy with third place when they know they should be getting 1-2s every week.
I think it's a fair point, and I think it straight after the pit stops, after the first round, you saw how quickly Bottas caught up to Verstappen, which is where you got the...
But he had a terrible start, though.
Yeah, but then...
Terrible start.
Yeah, but then you look at it, and it just seems like... I don't know if it's the cars, like the way the cars work with the wake and the turbulent air that you get straight behind, or if it's just the fact that when it comes to the race, if he's not leading, like, you know that Hamilton's always going to give a charge, but Bottas's charge seems to be he gets towards DRS, or you don't even get into DRS, and then he just falls off. Yeah. Whether it's the tyres, whether it's him, I don't know. I still like him as a driver.
I still think he's an excellent driver. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's a bad driver. I'm just saying I think if he can't perform in this car when it is one of the most dominant platforms we've seen in Formula One ever, I think if he can't perform in that car, Mercedes will be saying, well, you know, we know there's a lot of talent that we have in the wings, you know, like your George Russells and such, and thinking, well, let's give them the platform and see how they do. But I think, especially because his contract is up next year. Yeah, and I think especially if with all the talk and uncertainty about Toto Wolff, if he's going to stay. Or if Mercedes are going to stay. Mercedes, yeah. But I think if Toto Wolff goes, I think in 2 years, in 2022, with the new regulations, you might see 2 brand new drivers at Mercedes. Really? You think Lewis will go? I think if Hamilton gets if Toto goes, because Lewis is basically, they're intertwined in this. Yeah. Like, it was Lewis, it was Nicky, and it was Toto. Obviously, Nicky sadly passed. But, you know, that everything with them is so intertwined that I just think if there's the chance that he's going to go, and if Lewis has already got all the records and he's, you know, he's going to be up there. He's going to be like, mid-30s then. Yeah, well, do you think once he gets his 8th he'll have all World the records, Championship, do you think that he'll just say, I've done enough? Because, I mean, you don't think he'd be like Kimi and stick around? He's not going to. Lewis, we know, the one thing we know with Lewis, he's not going to go to a back marker, just like Vettel should. And just like Vettel, they've earned enough in their career and enough respect that they don't deserve to be where Kimi is. And Kimi, I don't know what he's doing. I don't think Kimi does it because he wants to win anymore. I know he might just love the racing. I get that. I think he just loves being a Formula One driver. I do think, though, I'll just touch on this briefly, but I think both Alfa Romeo drivers need to go. Yep, I'm with you, 100%. I think both. I think Magnussen can stay at Haas. Grosjean's got to go. Grosjean has to go. Oh, dude, he's terrible. Like, he almost caused another accident this weekend with Kimi. Yeah, have you noticed? Have you noticed driver's safety? Have you noticed? Giovinazzi is literally. He does nothing to the point that we literally never talk about him. Yeah, because nothing happens with him. I honestly forget he's racing. Him and Latifi, I forget they're racing. They're that far behind. Latifi, I can kind of understand because this is his first year in F1, so I could count some slack. We'll give him a break, you know. But Giovinazzi, to me, he needs to either, you know, start doing something. I know he's not got the most competitive car, but even when he had a decent car last year, in my opinion, the Alfa's better than the Williams, and George Russell is just destroying him. George Russell needs a better car. Get George in a better car. Honestly, it's. I would just love to see him in another Mercedes, and even if it's another Mercedes, and I know he's not gonna go to Racing Point because obviously there's some high profile chatter about Racing Point, but I would just love to see him in a car like that, like the Racing Point or the McLaren or the Mercedes. Shall we speak about that high profile chatter and someone who did have a good weekend in Sebastian Vettel? Yeah. Good, so good to see. It was once again though, Ferrari just showing that they don't know how to manage his races again. He literally had to tell them what he wanted to do, and then they asked him and he said, well, I've already said this to you. I said this 6 laps ago. I said, are we going to get new tyres, or do you want me to manage the tyres, or are we going to stay out? And it just seems laughable. Like, it's a complete circus. And the thing that really vexes me about that is that they didn't even have to worry about Charles because he wasn't even in the bloody race. No. Well, as soon as Charles went out, it was like, oh, okay, now we'll think about Seb's race. You know, they were like, oh, okay, now, oh, Seb, you're there. Oh, okay. Well, how are you tired? You know, then they started asking him. But, are we going to stay out on new tyres? He's like, I asked you this 6 laps ago. Yeah. I've been pushing on these softs for 6 laps. I've not been actively trying to manage the tyres. How on earth he managed to get a 7th on the 40 lap? Because he's softs. Great and he deserves to be treated better. And he does. And as much as, you know, we have lambasted him a bit for his driving and his mistakes he makes, but you said this though, you're not going to put your body and your life on the line for a team that doesn't want you there, because at the end of the day, if you want to get podiums and chase cars down from 6th, 7th on the grid. You need to push hard, and it's dangerous.
Don't get us wrong. He's still going to give as much as he can. He's not going
to give that last 15.
And especially when you can see how far the car is behind, and you can see how far his car. Yeah. Especially, I know they're giving a new chassis this week. But you can see how far he's behind his teammate and how far he's behind. You can't even make, when he's not getting out of Q2.
That is not good.
What's going on?
But
congratulations on his 3,000th point. I think.
And I'm glad he got in the points.
And he had a great drive in 7th. Managed to hold off some very quick drivers behind him. He held off
Daniel
Albon,
Ricciardo,
who was
Norris, Albon,
all on new tyres.
Actually, no, Albon was ahead in the end, wasn't he?
Hmm?
Albon finished above him.
No, he finished. He finished behind him. Yeah,
but he finished 10th.
Albon finished 8th.
No, Norris.
Oh, no, Norris. Oh, yeah, Norris finished 10th.
Yeah.
Norris was pushing Gasly all the way, wasn't he?
And that's another one. Very impressed with Gasly this weekend.
You've been so
impressed. I was very
yeah.
impressed with Gasly. I think you said when we were talking about the race, Albon he's going to have to watch out if Gasly's coming for that seat.
Well, we know how hair trigger they are with that second seat at Red Bull. So
Gasly, unbelievable quality performances though. Unbelievable quality performances.
He's making that AlphaTauri do things.
I know. He's making it really good.
Yeah.
Albon actually raced well, but he just terrible strategy on behalf of Red Bull, in my opinion.
Yet again, the similarities between Red Bull and Ferrari with their second drivers.
Yeah.
I know we mention it. I know we're probably bored of hearing us talk about these second drivers, but you send Albon out on a hard tyre that everyone's been complaining about. Like all weekend, everyone's been complaining about the hards ain't, basically the hards ain't it, chief,
Yeah.
And then you send him out on hards, and he's losing time, and you can see that everyone, all the drivers behind him were pushing him. Like Sainz, who had an amazing race, breezed past him. Like it was so easy for Sainz to get past Albon, and his race was compromised yet again. And
Racing Point had a good weekend as well.
Racing Point did have a very good weekend. Very solid 4th and 5th, which, that's what they'll take. If they can get 4th and 5th every week.
Yeah, I mean, when you think that realistically, if you were looking at it in terms of which team's the best, you would have Mercedes 1-2, Red Bull 3-4, if you're looking at who had the best cars. So for Racing Point to be in there getting 4th, 5th, I think they should be very happy with that as their first season as a truly competitive team.
Yeah. I think it's, they're better than the Ferraris.
Miles better
than the Ferrari. I think the Ferrari, because the thing is, in the constructors,
even Bottas was struggling at one point to catch the Racing Points.
Yeah, because you've got in third, you've got the Racing Points with 63 points, McLaren 62 points in 4th, and Ferrari 61 points.
They gotta be happy with that, though. McLaren, they have to be happy with that. Surely.
See, I'd actually argue that they'd be more disappointed than Ferrari. I think Ferrari are probably buzzing that they're in 5th and they're only they're only 2 points off Racing Point. I know Racing Point had a 15-point deduction, so really theirs would be 78. But who knows what's going to go in that? We'll leave that in the thing. But
yes,
if you're looking at it, you're like, well, Ferrari, without the 2 lucky podiums that they got in Silverstone,
one of which
and in Austria,
that Austria one was sheer luck.
Yeah,
sheer luck.
Like honestly, without the 2 podiums, they could be battling Renault in 6th.
Yeah,
and are they better than, like, honestly, in terms of performance right now? I know Seb finished 7th, but are they better than Renault? I'd say it's a wash. Are they better than AlphaTauri? I'd say it's a wash with AlphaTauri. To be honest, mate.
I think it's where Racing Point. Well, I think it was HRT or Force India.
It's Force India.
Yeah. So we're sort of Racing Point, McLaren, and a couple of seasons ago when there was that like battle basically past 5th place.
Yeah.
For those places, where Ferrari were always challenging for 1 and 2.
Yep.
Ferrari have basically just slipped back, and Racing Point have come up. So now Ferrari's battling for those last couple of points places. Which is just not good luck.
Again, like we say every week, you shouldn't be seeing Ferraris battling to get into Q3. They should be walking it.
Yeah, they should be up there.
Yeah. But I tell you what, it's great drama and great. It's good to see different drivers up there.
Yeah.
Again, tell you what, Carlos Sainz had a very not under the radar, but it was a great weekend that people didn't really talk about that much because you had there was just so much other stuff going on that he just kind of got breezed by into sixth, and it's kind of easy. Like, I know he started seventh, and sixth is only one position, but jumped ahead of the Red Bull, jumped ahead of a Ferrari. He's
I'm impressed with
pretty
Sainz.
close with
I think he'll be a bit gutted that he's leaving McLaren to go to Ferrari.
Yeah, especially in that circus. But,
especially because we know Ferrari have said we're not going to be competitive until at least 2022 when the new regulations come in.
Exactly. And he's, he wasn't that far off the racing points. With Perez's 5-second penalty, if he was only I think if he had like a second and a bit.
0.8 tenths, I think.
Yeah. He was it was whatever it was really close. But, great weekend. And the McLaren.
Good strategy from the racing point, actually, the team strategy to preserve that place. That was well managed. And
it's good to see. I think if we're looking at it again, just drivers that are just at risk and just not getting it done. Ocon, I know he had a couple passes this week, but it's still not good.
Up to par, in my opinion.
It's still not good enough. And I think
Renault are going to have a horrendous season with a 39-year-old Fernando Alonso and an Ocon who just still doesn't look like he's confident enough in that car to get. And
especially when we've
done.
Seen Hulkenberg. I know I keep going on about it.
I think Hulkenberg would be a great move to Renault instead of Ocon.
Yeah, well, they won't get rid of Ocon now. Yeah. He's got enough years. I mean, the problem is where's some of these drivers going to keep their seats?
Giovinazzi, Kimi, and Grosjean for me. If there's three drivers that need to take a step back from Formula One, it's got to be those three. Yep. Because
I'd agree.
Giovinazzi.
Unless you're going to put Giovinazzi in the
Kimi
Haas,
especially. I just don't think he's good. He's not good. Those cars are on the same level, pretty much. Yeah. I just don't think he's doing enough in the Alpha. Like you don't hear anything. He drops back a couple of places, and then you don't hear anything about him doing anything for the rest of the race. No, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think that pretty much concludes the F1 from the. We'll
skip the cricket for now. That's going to come at the end. Special segment along with the football.
It was a rather disappointing race again, but
we knew that's exactly what it was going to be, though. We knew that was what was going to happen. The order would say pretty much the same after the first lap, and
But we've got Spa to look forward to next 2 weeks. Sorry, 2 weeks time.
I can't love Spa.
Everyone loves Spa, and it's such a quick circuit. Eau Rouge and Radion. Can't wait.
But I'll just say one thing though. So much of Spa comes down to commitment.
Oh yeah.
In terms of, like you said, no Rouge and Radion. Like how much, and don't get me wrong, it's dangerous corners. Those are probably that Eau Rouge is probably the most dangerous bit of track in the Formula One circuit. Coming over the blind hill into Radion. That is probably the most dangerous set of turns in Formula One. And it comes down to, because we've seen bad accidents. We had a obviously fatal crash there in the Formula 2 race last year.
Yeah.
And, if you look, when you look at the onboards, like they are flat out through there. And you're not going to be making overtake maneuvers in Eau Rouge, but, getting those lap times down comes down to commitment in those. I think it's turn 14 as well, which is another flat out corner.
Oh, what, Blanchimont?
Yeah. It's another flat out corner where it's just commitment.
Yeah.
If you want to get those high lap times,
like look into the first corner at La Source, the amount the
speed you got to shave off.
Literally just the speed you carry into that first one, and then we've seen accidents. We saw Leclerc, we saw Alonso go over Leclerc's old Alpha back in the day, like a couple of years ago, and it's that first corner at La Source is equally as, but there's so many, you got going down the hill of Pouhon, you got.
I think it's one of the tracks that Ferrari want to challenge,
but they won't.
They might, because Charles is very confident. At that track, so maybe it might be a good one for Ferrari, but they're down on power, so probably
this
not.
Is the problem with all the, you got the Kemmel straight and everything, all of that.
Such a long straight, and like so many flat corners.
Into Le Combe, and everything. It just looks, again, like looking at the track, it just looks like another Mercedes. Yeah, and probably, I think Red Bull may be a bit better, but to be honest, I'd look at Racing Point for that podium. I think if there's one course,
they're coming for it. There is no way that they won't get another podium this season, in my opinion.
Because someone's going to crash. But I think Spa and Monza are the two best chances for Racing Point, especially Monza, which is 10 turns really. You've
very fast.
You've only got 3 or 4 that are actually slow. And so I think that's going to be their real opportunities at Monza. But I think Spa, I'd say look out for Racing Point.
Yeah, I agree. Shall we move on?
Yes. Shall we take our little trip over the Atlantic?
Yes, we will mosey on in to the NBA playoffs.
Yes, and
I have been enjoying watching the NBA. I've watched a lot of games since last week.
Before we get into the playoffs, have you nailed your colours to any mast?
Well, I remember after I watched my very first NBA game, I said, Ev, a Portland a good team to support, and you went, they're not like a glory sport team.
No.
They'll be an all right team to support. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll support Portland. That was like week before last episode.
Yep.
And it turns out they've actually done quite well. So
Just
picked a decent team.
You picked a very good team because Damian Lillard is...
Yeah, he's had some crazy stats.
He's been next level this kind of bubble they've been in. It was between him and Devin Booker.
He's put Portland on his back, basically.
Bubble MVP was either him or Dame Dollar. It's Dame Dollar or Devin Booker as the bubble MVP.
Yeah.
I would have given it to Devin Booker because the Phoenix Suns, who were so far behind, they went 8-0 at Disneyland. They went 8-0, and he almost dragged them to the playoffs. But if it wasn't for the Nets beating the...
But Damian Lillard's got an average of nearly 38 points per game.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and his percentages are pretty crazy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Oh, you said he's making almost 5 3-pointers in you earlier.
Yeah, well, 5.5 average.
Yep.
With an accuracy of nearly 44%.
That's really good for 3-pointing.
Well, he's...
3-pointing. 3-point shooting.
He's got nearly an 89% free throw accuracy as well.
That's really good. Like, especially for the amount of free throws that you shoot. That's
according to the stats I'm looking at.
Well, the stat that always trust the stats. And NBA is the most statistically high, like statistically
relevant.
Yeah,
there's lots of stats relevant. Yeah,
that's what you do use the most in. Honestly, it's so data driven, the sport.
But I've enjoyed the games that I've watched, and I think if anyone's listening who maybe is looking for something to get into, now we're coming off lockdown and sports getting back on, take it from someone who's only recently started watching basketball. It's a great spectator sport. Yep. It's really fun to watch if you are looking for something new. And they're very liberal with their highlights on YouTube. If you don't want to spend a couple of nearly a couple of hours watching a game, they've got
condensed games.
They're very generous with their highlights.
You can get like
unlike some sports,
you can get like 13 to 15 minute highlights of games, which realistically you're basically going to see most shots in an NBA game in 30 minutes.
They're very liberal with the highlights they share.
And speaking of the Blazers, it takes us nicely on to, actually, if you want to get into the NBA, now's the perfect time with the playoffs starting. And the Portland Trail Blazers have won their 8-9 playoff game that they had to win to qualify for the playoffs, and their reward for such a feat is the LA Lakers.
Yeah.
Who are in a bit of a rut at the moment. They are not playing the best basketball.
I think Portland, this is again taking lessons from other sports, they're on a bit of a roll.
Yep.
When a team starts winning, and it's quite hard to stop them winning. And then what you tend to see is, if a team loses after a long winning streak, it can sometimes herald a bit of a downturn. And
it kind of goes, if they're winning for so long, it then goes the other way and they start losing for so long.
Like from what I've seen of Portland so far, Damian Lillard, Gary Trent Jr., CJ McCollum seem like quite key players.
Even Melo.
Yeah, I think like from what I've watched so far, like Melo seems to, when they're a bit stuck and the shot clock is down, he can just take a chance and
bails them out sometimes.
Yeah, he does score. Just posts up and gets points. Kind of when the teams is like, where do we go? There's nothing really seems to be on. So.
We're not going to see the old New York Knicks ISO Carmelo where he's just going to take the ball for the entire shot clock and then fire up a three. But he's going to do a job for them. And I think the Lakers are, I don't want to say they're in trouble, but they're going to have to be worried, especially because they probably would have wanted to face Memphis, not the Blazers, but the Blazers made it. And I think, honestly, if I had to make a prediction, if we're making predictions, which I think we are, I'm going to go 4-2 Lakers. I think they'll just squeak it. But I could see a Game 7 easily. Easily see a Game 7 in the, in the forecast. Moving on to the next matchup, we've got the Clippers, who are playing the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, special place in my heart for the Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic.
I watched a bit of Dallas as well. Again, they've got great point scoring talent on the, like you said, in Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. They're both excellent. They just score. Do you know what I mean? Like they're just two players that you can't seem to stop them. So and they're pretty good defensively, Dallas as well.
Yeah, well
from what I've seen,
they're the highest scoring duo in this bubble. I'm going to stop saying bubble now because it's getting on my nerves. I'm becoming the bubble boy. But they're the highest scoring duo. And I think they look like they play well together. You've got, it's a classic story of like a big and a small in the NBA. It's very reminiscent of how Kobe and Shaq used to play, or Wade and Bosh, or LeBron and Bosh, and these players who used to just, you have your ball heavy scorer, and then you've got the guy in the post, and like Kristaps Porzingis with his unicorn, he's called. Because he can do so many things, and no one's seen anything like him. A 7'3" guy who can shoot him,
because he shoots from mad ranges.
Yeah, and just we haven't seen that sort of thing. But
because I watched the Dallas Blazers game, and that was quite a close game in the end. And
not Luka's best game, but
no, but they Porzingis just fires from miles out and just.
I think similarly to the Lakers, I think the Mavs may take one or two games off the Clippers, but the Clippers with their defense now, they'll have Pat Bev, they'll have Montrezl Harrell, they'll have all their bench scoring, they'll have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. They've got so many weapons. I think they'll just overwhelm them eventually. And again, I'm going to go for a 4-2 victory for the Clippers. What about you? What do you think?
I'm not going to give predictions on sport I know very little about.
Go on, do it. I'd love to see Dallas win, but I don't think
they played really well. They looked good against because I watched the Lakers Clippers game. Both teams looked a bit muted.
Yeah,
they both looked a bit muted.
Agree. Yeah.
So I'm going to say I've watched one game from each team so far. I'll say Dallas.
Dallas in a series, okay.
Noob guess.
The noob, yeah. I'm not going to spend too much time on the Nuggets and Jazz, even though, again, I think the whole of the Western Conference is now shaped up to be a incredibly close affair, and I think the Nuggets could lose this easily. I think the Jazz, if they play well with Donovan Mitchell and all the talents they've got, but they do have Mike Conley missing, so I think it'd be hard for them to overcome some of their stuff. But I'm gonna go Game 7, 4-3 Nuggets.
I haven't watched much from any of these teams,
so I just to round off the West, I'm gonna go 4-3 Nuggets. And I'm also going to go 4-3 with the Rockets over the OKC Thunder, who I saw a stat that they only had, at the start of the season, a 0.2 chance of making the playoffs. So they had 0.2 chance of making the playoffs, and they've done it. And they've had a good seed. So yeah, I think the West is going to be very close. I don't think that's the case with the East for the first two seeds. I think the Milwaukee Bucks behind Giannis, and, they're just Mike Budenholzer's team. I think they're just going to roll them. Honestly, it's going to be. It could be ugly. It could be very ugly if they. I think it's going to be a sweep, 4-0, no questions asked. And I think it's the same with the Raps over the only other team that you seem to have watched, Nathan, and the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah,
they're all right, but they're missing. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. They're missing quality top 10 players.
Yeah, I guess, and that's hard when you, especially if they're players that have carried a team for that's tough to try and win games, especially like if you got a player who they almost like your whole game plan is built around.
Yeah. Well, because Kyrie, I know Kevin Durant and Kyrie, they only just joined last year, but like I said, they've built this team for those two, and I know they knew that Kevin Durant had the injury coming in with his Achilles, but you still, people didn't expect them to do much, but they thought with Kyrie, they had some other players, they thought they'll give it a go, but it just Kyrie hasn't worked out for them yet, but who knows, their year's next year. But I think they're going to get swept. I'm going 4-0 again. 4-0 Raptors. Nick Nurse and that team, because they lost Kawhi Leonard, they lost the Finals MVP, and they look just as good this year. They look amazing with Pascal Siakam. So 4-0 again, easy sweep. So 2 sweeps at the top. And then Miami, Indiana. I think this is going to be the closest game.
I know you spoke about Miami a bit.
Yes.
In previous episodes. Are you still going to go with Miami?
Oh yeah, mate. I'm picking my team. Picking the boys. Picking the Heat all the way. Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets, and his little Bam and his little gang. I think they're just going to. I know we lost Derek Jones Jr., but I think we should be able to beat Indiana. I think they had their little moments with TJ Warren, who was like averaging something stupid like 38 or 39 points or something at one point, until he played the Miami Heat and he got 12. So I think, it's all good until you come up against the Dogs and these guys, Miami, they just stick in. They're so physical. Yeah. And they're just a good team right now. I think maybe may have been a bit hasty on my Eastern Conference Finals pick, but I'm still going to back it. Miami 4-2 over Indiana. I think Indiana will get one or two games. And just to finish off, a series that would have been a lot better if it weren't for Ben Simmons' injury, and that's the Celtics versus the 76ers.
You back in Celtics?
Yeah, I'm back in the Celtics. I think it's good. To be honest, I might go 4-1. If they have Ben Simmons, I might be picking the 76ers, but the Celtics with Tatum, Brown, and all the other weapons they've got, and the coaching of Brad Stevens, that 76ers without their best defender in Ben Simmons and their whole offense in their point guard, really, because he initiates everything. I just don't think they're going to have it. And Boston, if Jason Tatum goes off, it could get ugly. It could be another sweep, but I'll say 4-1. I'm going to go quite comprehensive 4-1 for the Celtics.
Shall we get on to, I know you wanted to touch briefly.
Just going to briefly mention,
Canucks. I think from now on it's just not going to be an episode unless Ev doesn't mention the Canucks.
Well, yeah, we're in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they've.
We don't want to. Nobody wants to hear anything else about hockey, Ev.
Want to talk about the Golden Knights? Nah, mate, it's all about the Canucks. Now we're facing the St. Louis Blues in the last year's Stanley Cup champions, and we're actually winning the series 2-1. We won the first game 5-2 in a relatively comprehensive fashion. I know they're always going to outshoot, like they're going to have more shots than us, but the power play, like I said from the start, the power play for the Canucks is going to get them through the series. And then they won a very close 4-3 overtime against them. Unfortunately, they lost 3-2 in overtime last night, but for this young team, and with Bo Horvat and Elias Pettersson and all the other weapons, Brock Besser, Markstrom in goal looks amazing. Who knows? Who knows what this team could do if they get past the Blues? They're not going to win it. I'd love them to, but they're not going to win it this year. But the future is bright, and the Canucks are doing well. So let's hope they can. Let's hope by this time next week, I could be talking about a series win over the former champs.
Wait and see.
But we will see. Fingers crossed.
And, well, obviously we have a few guests coming on later this episode. Very special guests, actually. Yeah. And I'm going to be talking through the cricket with one of them, and Ev's going to be talking Champions League and Premier League.
All football, yeah.
Yeah, with the other guest. Yeah.
I think you had a stat about the Champions League, didn't you, on the week that happened?
Oh, yeah. A friend of mine, you know who you are, mentioned this to me, that every time Bayern and Barca have played each other in the Champions League, whoever's won that game has gone on to win the Champions League. Obviously we saw the absolute demolition job.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about
Barcelona.
That.
Trust me, that's getting covered in depth.
Yeah, that's a scathing indictment on the. On
demolition
Barcelona.
job, mate. Demolition job. But before we go into those two segments, I know we just briefly wanted to touch on the UFC.
UFC 252.
I can remember the number, 252.
Yep, don't you worry.
Very much.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you, mate.
Where do you want to start?
Well, let's not start with a title fight just yet. Yeah. Let's just talk briefly about the two fights that were before. You had
you can cover that because I didn't watch much of those.
Junior Dos Santos facing Rosenstrike, the surname Beast in the heavyweight division. He just destroyed him. Wasn't even close. JDS didn't stand a chance. Rosenstrike coming off the humiliation that he suffered to Francis Ngannou after being knocked out after like 20 odd seconds or something.
Not ideal.
No. Came out and then just smothered him and just bullied him until the second round, where he eventually finished him, and it wasn't close. And then the sugar show, Sean O'Malley, all this hype, and unfortunately, yet again, he's been done in by another injury.
That's all you like to see, is it? To
his other leg, but he was undefeated coming into this point. The last time he injured his foot or leg, he still recovered to win by decision, but it was, he finished the fight on the floor, but it wasn't great. But Marlon Vera, his fight that he was facing, took advantage of it and beat him. I think it's a bit unfair to really go in too much on Sean O'Malley. I think if he was on the feet, he probably would have beat him, in all honesty. But it's sad to see that he's having ankle injuries again, because he would have been, he probably could have won that fight quite convincingly. I don't think Marlon Vera would have really done much. But listen, Sugar Show, he'll be back. He'll probably be as cocky and as brash as ever. But I'm not gonna, chastise or lambast him too much. I'm just gonna let him go and leave this as a separate entity in its own, own event, and we'll just leave that. But let's move on to the main event now.
Yes, DC
and Stipe 3. It was not as exciting as the others. It was still good.
Yeah,
it was.
I've seen a few bits of this fight, so I can some contribute to the discourse.
Yes, well, Stipe looked like he just used what everyone thought he should have used in the first couple of fights. He used his length, used his Golden Gloves boxing,
picked his punch as well. Yeah. Didn't go throw in loose shots, because if you look, the shots that he did seem to take from DC, they tended to be up close when he overextended or got caught in a clinch. And when he picked those punches well, obviously he didn't bring himself too close, like you said, used his reach. Because DC can punch. Yeah. Like, he is a powerful
even puncher. Though he hasn't got as much technique in his striking.
No, definitely not. But if you catch one on the chin,
it hurts. You wouldn't want it. But and all that pressure that Stipe put on him was shown in the at the end of the second round. Yeah, with like 10 to 8 seconds to go, he drops him.
I think if that had been 15, 20 seconds earlier, that fight probably wouldn't have gone further than that. I'd agree. And because he was making absolutely no effort to chuck anything back at all when he was on the ground, DC. But one thing I will say for DC, he used his weight, I think, well. He obviously had the weight advantage, and he, in the clinch, he used it well, get the head down.
Definitely try to show off his wrestling a bit more. Yeah.
But I think you said Stipe is a Div 1 wrestler.
People forget how many weapons Stipe's got. He's a former Golden Gloves boxing.
And that showed. That was very obvious.
And he's a he's a Division 1 wrestler as well. Like, people, I know he's not Cormier's level. Cormier's a far better wrestler, but it's still Division 1. It's good that you can still hold him up and in the clinch.
I think when you have someone who is DC is probably, I don't think anyone would argue that he's not stronger. And when you have someone who's got that, even though he's got a reach advantage, which he made very good use of, when you got someone who's that much stronger than you in the clinch, pulling down on your head and getting the shots in there, sometimes you just got to cover up. Like going on the counter attack, I don't think was good, because DC did that very well, punching off the counter attack, because he knows that he can't outbox Miocic, but he punched well on the counter attack when Stipe overextended himself. I think, because you did see that when he took the big shots, it was nearly always either coming forward and overextending and leaving himself open.
Yep. And we do have to mention, obviously, in the third round there was the blatant eye poke. Was it deliberate?
I don't think it didn't look. No. I know, like you said to me, it's just something that comes as part of having open gloves. Yeah. Open finger gloves. Sometimes it happens.
What happened to Stipe in the first fight? He had to have surgery. DC said after this fight he couldn't see. And when you see the images, you're like, his finger is fully in his eye. Like, it looks nasty, but that's because of all the grappling, you have to have open-handed gloves, and unfortunately, you're gonna get a finger in the eye at some point. That's just what's gonna happen. And
it was unfortunate, but I don't think it was.
I don't think it would have made a difference to the outcome of the fight. And Cormier, after the fight, retired. And personally, for me, retired as a probably a top 5 fighter on his legacy and everything that he's done. I mean, he's only had a couple of losses. 2 of those were two of them to Miocic, 2 of them to John Jones. So where does he rank? He's not better than John Jones. But is he a top 10 fighter? Easily. Is he a top 5? I could debate on that.
You could talk yourself into believing it.
I could see an argument for it, but personally for me, he's like 7th, maybe 8th in terms of all-time ranking. But we'll get into that another day about all-time rankings. Maybe after Adesanya fights Paulo Costa in the next or when Khabib fights Justin Gaethje. There's big events coming up that we'll definitely be talking about. But yeah,
shall we? The first of 2 segments coming up.
The first special segment.
Yes. So after we come back, we will get into the football. But this is the end of the normal episode structure as we know it. So cheers, Ev.
That's all right. This is the end of our partnership.
Yes,
mate.
This is the end of the partnership.
Wishing England had as good a partnership, but
But hope you enjoy these next 2 segments, and we will be back together next week.
See you next week. Hello, welcome back to this special segment called Football's on its Arse with Big T.
Controversial.
Very controversial. We thought we'd just run through the Champions League that's happened over the weekend, maybe a little look ahead to the Premier League next year, and just general football chat.
Yeah, we're going to predict the future.
Yeah, of course. We're looking into the crystal ball yet again. So obviously on the weekend there was a big upset, you would say, with the way that Man City got knocked out to Lyon. They lost 3-1 in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. What were your thoughts on it?
I never thought it was a clear-cut given for Man City. I think when you looked at the teams, Lyon have always played well. I think Man City are notorious at the back for not being able to defend anything. And I think the price of 11-1 at the bookies against Lyon, I just wish I'd taken it.
Yeah. To be honest, that ship's always taken on water, that Man City defence, isn't it? It's very shaky at the back, and they just got exposed again for that high line. Well, and Lyon just found it easy to...
Problem there, they've only got one defender, a good defender, Laporte. When he plays bad, you've got no hope. Obviously, Walker's there. He's got a lot of speed, but nothing else.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, they were just found out once again. And no big surprise. They've just got to buy a few defenders next year.
Yeah. But they've already spent like 300 million on defenders, and they've got one good one. One,
I'm sure
one capable defender.
There's plenty more money there.
Yeah, I don't think it's a small bank, is it, for Man City? I think they've got unlimited riches. But Pep Guardiola, it's not a good indictment on his time at Man City that they haven't been past the quarterfinals.
Yeah, but the good thing is they'll keep him now, because I think once he's achieved something, then he'll move on. So he's got something to prove, and maybe it'll spur him on. And he's just got to look at his tactics. So, once again, found out. Next year could be the same. No. Who knows? Yet
again, the person that you were always questioning, Raheem Sterling, and his finishing, that was a terrible miss, wasn't it, on the weekend?
Well, I think when Raheem Sterling was born and started football, I think he was a winger. So he's not a natural. He's not Aguero.
No.
He's not Messi.
He's definitely not Messi.
And his touch is what I would call typically British. He's not as technically gifted as the Continentals. Yeah. And sometimes he just gets it wrong. And when he hit that one over the bar...
He's 6 yards out. No one's in front of goal. And he's always played rugby. He's kicked it over the bar.
The problem is, I mean, a natural goal scorer, Lineker, Aguero, Jimmy Greaves... Shearer would have just put that in. And I played Sunday football, and I was a number 9. And I think even at that standard, I would have been if I'd missed that.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been fun. Like, you would have been ridiculed for that. Like, you can't miss those.
Well, there was only 11 in our team. I think they would have dropped me anyway if I missed that. So
they'd have played with 10 if you'd have done that. And maybe City should have if these, just completely scorned that.
I think that's typical Sterling, though. He's not a goal scorer. No. Just keep him on the wing, get him to cross it in.
See, normally that's where he flourishes, when he's got the tap-ins and the team are just playing around and playing it into him in front of the goal, and he's just... to be honest, he's just cocked it, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
He's just done a Torres, like he's taking it round. There's an open goal and he's just skied it.
Yeah, he was like a later version of Torres when he'd hit the wall. So, not very good at all. But, I mean, I'd say the biggest regret in my life now, because I haven't had many, was I didn't take 11-1.
11-1, yeah. Yeah, you did say earlier, like literally hours before the game, you're like, I don't fancy Man City. I don't trust the defence.
Yeah.
And, Edison had a terrible game as well. He was at fault for, I think, 2 of the goals. Yeah. Maybe not all of them, but I think 2. I just think his positioning on some of them, he's not a great shot stopper.
No.
His distribution is amazing, but his actual shot stopping isn't at the level of, say, you Alisson or you like Jan Oblak for Atletico Madrid. I'd
keep him though.
Oh yeah,
you can have kick a ball.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
You can kick a ball to the other goalkeeper with one bounce, which I think is very clever.
Yeah, it's a good tactic, isn't it?
And his distribution is very good. Yeah, if you ever want to play the long game, Man City, I think he's perfect.
But you question why they didn't start Mahrez on the
skill.
right.
Yeah, as a lot of people said, why look at the other team, play to your strengths, overload with skill, and win 5-4. Don't worry about your defence. You're no good. And as I say, you've got Laporte, you've got Walker, and a few others there, and you've got Fernandinho, and you're going to leak goals. You bring John Stones on, that's the end.
Yeah. So, John Stones is not the answer, is he?
Nah, don't know what they're going to do with him now. I think someone's got to serve the oranges.
Speaking of Atletico Madrid, it was good to see that, in no uncertain terms, football won out with Leipzig besting Diego Simeone in his kind of just holding the fort tactics and just,
He never changes, does he?
No.
And let's be honest, he's a lunatic on the sidelines. I think football won, and I think Leipzig, Germany, they just Germaned them, basically.
Yeah.
Efficient, good. well, they did. Everything they do has got purpose.
Yeah.
Whereas our guys will knock it about to look good, but they won't get anywhere. With the Germans, it's like, right, enough of that. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's go for the jugular. And to see Simeone on the sidelines, getting what he deserved, basically, which he's just not playing football.
No.
And when that team plays, so when they go one down, they start playing, they're pretty good.
Yeah. Well, the young maestro, in a way, and Julian Nagelsmann was very highly touted coming from Hoffenheim. And now he's at Leipzig. He's got a bigger bank account, bigger budget. They just lost their best striker, though. The best player this season in Timo Werner. And they've still managed to beat Atletico because Atletico have no desire to actually push the initiative. They just sit there. Like you said, they just play it. They're happy to just defend.
Yeah, it's back to the drawing board for Simeone. I think maybe they'll get rid of him.
But he's the highest paid manager in the world, apparently.
Yeah, you can still sack him.
Yeah, you could sack him, but that's what I'm saying. Like, when's it going to change? When are they going to do?
Well, it's got to. They're an agent team. They've been found out, and I wouldn't go and pay £5 to go and watch them play football.
Well, they signed Lamar for 70 million. He's got no goals or assists. I also think their investment in some of the players hasn't been good enough.
Yeah.
Like, they got that young kid João Felix, who's actually looked okay, but apart from that, like, Costa was Upamecano at the back for Leipzig. Had him in his pocket. It was just rudimentary for him.
With Costa, if you're not frightened of him,
yeah,
that's his game gone, basically.
That's a good point. Everyone else looks scared when they play.
A couple of years ago, he'd come on the pitch and the centre half go missing or would get just done over. But he's shot. But he's slow as well.
He is slow, very slow.
I think he's lost his edge and the surprise factor. So no surprise there.
No, and the for once the Atletico physicality and cheap tactics with the free kicks didn't work. And Leipzig just played better and they outplayed them.
Yeah, good result.
Good result for football. Moving on, PSG left it late, didn't they?
Yeah, that was a shame. I think the thing about PSG is Neymar's okay.
Yeah,
strange guy. Spends a lot of time on the floor. Looks a bit sorry for himself. Mbappe is the key there. If he's fit, I think they win. If he's not,
game was flipped when he came on, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But I'm still predicting it's going to be a German final with Bayern winning by 2.
But Bayern winning against Leipzig by 2. Yeah,
definitely.
But so PSG were losing to Atalanta, who the free scoring Atalanta, who our friend said it was on last week. That's what they do. They're just open and expansive. They don't care about defense. They'll just try and outscore you. And PSG just 90th minute, I think Marquinhos headed in the equaliser, and then 93rd minute.
Exactly.
Eric Choupo-Moting, of all people, used to play for Stoke.
Well, you are.
He scored.
He's gone downhill then.
It's not a bad upgrade, is it, from Stoke to PSG?
Yeah, I've seen something there. But free score in Atalanta. Unfortunately, they only scored 1.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they scored 3. They might have a chance.
Well, then it would have been 3-2, wouldn't it?
PSG are always going to be, even though Neymar is like an acquired taste. I think
he's quality though on the ball.
Yeah, he's great, but he's just spends too much time. There's no respect for the guy. I mean, he's totally different to Messi. Mind you, when we get on to Messi,
we'll get on
lost
to that
a
now.
lot of respect for that guy as well.
Did you?
Oh, definitely. Even though he's left-footed like me.
Yeah, I know. Like as you say, all the best footballers are left-footed.
All of them.
Everyone.
And all the right-footers are just pretending.
Yeah. Yeah, so PSG left it late. Anyway, let's get on to the absolute demolition that was Bayern Munich 8, Barcelona Football Club 2.
They give up.
Or Football Club de Barcelona, however you want to say it. They were battered.
Barcelona gave up.
They did.
You should never give up. Whichever sport you play, you always try right to the end because it's pride. But at the end, I mean, they were just walking in the net. When Coutinho comes on and scores 2 goals against his own team,
yep.
I mean, God's sake.
Literally, the player that Barcelona are looking out for has just scored 2 and given an assist on the other side. But I still think Messi's the greatest, but it wasn't a good look how he just, like you said, he just gave up.
He reminded me of when he played in those bad Argentinian teams. He just obviously knew he was carrying the team, and as he proved with Argentina, you just can't carry him against great international teams. But in that one, he looked totally dejected. He looked nonplussed. I think he gave up.
He looks tired, doesn't he? He looks worn out.
Well, he's what, 32, 33 now?
34.
Yeah, so he's coming to the end of it now, so maybe he should be looking to go elsewhere. I think there's rumours that he's not enjoying himself at Barcelona as well.
Well, yeah, apparently he's handed in a transfer request. He was going to leave next year, apparently, but now he's pulled that forward. But you know what rumours are like, every year he says he's unhappy at Barca and then gets a new contract with 700,000.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get that at his age now. I think you're in your prime at 28, so he's 5 years over that. I think basically just you've got to know when to leave the stage. I think.
But I don't think his game at his age will translate as well as Ronaldo's. Whereas Ronaldo's just a goal scorer; they just feed into him. Messi needs everything. He needs to orchestrate, basically be the conductor of the orchestra, and you
got to have some instruments to conduct.
And that's the problem. He's looking around, and the investment at Barcelona, they spent millions and millions of pounds, but it's so bad. Like defensively, they're one of the worst teams that I've ever seen defensively.
Well, apart from Man City.
Apart from Man City, yeah. But again, another team who spent loads and but they've got like 2 or 3 good players still in that team, I'd say. Yeah. That could actually, there's like Ter Stegen in goal. You've got Frankie De Jong in midfield. You've got Messi and you've got Suarez. Yeah. Outside of that,
I think Suarez.
Everyone's replaceable.
I think you mentioned Suarez, but he's gone as well. His legs are gone. His teeth are there, but his legs are gone now. He can't run. I mean, he's plodding about. Any quick defender who's even of average ability can just outsmart him. Great finish for the goal. He'll never lose his finish. But
he's a brilliant finisher.
He just needs to stand in the 6-yard line or on the 6-yard line and just
might be better off doing a Giroud then coming off the bench. Maybe they need to.
Yeah, an impact player. He could be doing that. But I think with Messi, I still think he's the best player I've ever seen. And I saw Maradona. I saw a bit of Pele, but it wasn't much football then. I mean, with football now, you see every game, every minute, every angle. Yeah. So I never saw much of Pele. Maradona.
Bit of Cruyff.
Again, Cruyff, great player. The Cruyff turn. I mean, that obviously nailed on his. He was going to be a legend when he did that because he invented a new part of the game. So great player, Cruyff. I think he smoked too much though.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Just a touch. He
smoked when he played. Yeah. But but with Messi, I think he's a great player. But I think where Ronaldo beats him. I don't think Ronaldo would have given up. I think he's more of a trier.
He would have. That's the thing I'll give Ronaldo. When it's not going well, he will just push everything he's got for that goal. Like even if he's scoring it doesn't matter. He'll go for it at least. But I think we've got to speak more about how good Bayern have looked.
Great team
this year. They are
great team.
Ruthless. They beat what? They beat Chelsea 7-2 on aggregate. They beat Spurs 7-2. Oh no, sorry, they beat Chelsea 7-1 on aggregate. They beat Spurs 7-2 in one game. They've just beat Barca 8-2. They haven't lost a game. They've won every game they've played in the Champions League this year. And no one's going to beat them. Yeah, I can't see anyone beating this team. They're just too good. Lewandowski is on another level right now as a striker.
Great player, great finisher though, isn't he? Something Sterling's not. And he just puts the ball in the net, doesn't he? But he does other things as well. I think what was his stats? He made 4. Yeah, and scored. He scored one. He scored one. Yeah, possibly offside. But
I mean, I don't think that VAR really cared at that point. They've already.
Yeah, well, I think Barcelona. I think it's 7-2. They've been happy with that.
Yeah, I think it would have been a bit more respectable, wouldn't it?
No real stars. I mean, Thomas Muller. I love that player.
He's just consistent, isn't he?
He's just like a strange athlete. Yeah. But ever since I've seen him years ago playing for Germany, he just gets it done, and he's got a great attitude.
He always looks like he just wants to do someone in though. Like he's just
I don't think he's
so intense. No, I'm saying he's just so intense that he's like when he scores his goals, you just flexing every bone, like every muscle he's got in his body. Just
but that's because, like Ronaldo, it's not natural ability. He's got to try everything he's got, and that's
he's
the thing
a worker.
about
Yeah.
Ronaldo against Messi. Messi has just come naturally. I think he was born and he played football. Ronaldo's had to work at it.
Yeah.
Thomas Muller again. He's got to try, and I think when he does something great, he's happy. But he'll always put a shift in. Yeah. Lewandowski next to him, and then you've got that. Is it the left or the right guy?
Which one? Serge Gnabry?
No. The other one.
Alphonso Davies.
Oh, Alphonso Davies, yeah. We'll remember
he's
his
the
name.
talk of the town right now.
We'll remember his name in a few years' time.
Yeah.
If he goes the right way, he'll be good. You can never tell which way they're going to go.
The Canadian superstar is
fast and positive.
And he's good with the ball at his feet, which is...
You've got to be in Bayern, haven't you? Everyone's got to be able to contribute something. But
speaking of someone who's great with the ball at his feet is Leon Goretzka in midfield. I think he's quite... Like, him at Schalke was good, and now he's at Bayern, he's putting a bit of muscle as well. And in that midfield, he just looks next level. Like,
that ball he put through for that goal.
Unbelievable,
yeah. No, it's really good. No good. But it goes under the radar as well.
Yeah.
But great team. No real superstars. I mean, you'll always take a Messi and a Ronaldo against all of those. But Thomas Muller's work ethic, Alfonso's future is great. And you've got Neuer. Who seems to be playing well again. So, yeah.
He looks back to his best. I'll give him that. He had a couple of years where injuries, I think he broke his arm or his leg. And it just stunted his kind of form that he had going from Germany. And he just... I don't know if it was also Germany were just in disarray or something, but he just didn't look right, did he? But now he looks back to his best, like you said.
No, he's great. He's back to his arrogant best, isn't he?
Yeah.
And wonderful with the ball. And he comes out, he's like a sweeper as well. So,
but they just don't seem... The only weakness they seem to really have is Jerome Boateng, who looks old at the back.
Yeah, he's old school and he's got to go. I mean, Messi made him look a fool a couple of years ago, and he doesn't seem to have learned about it. He gets into the wrong body shapes and everything. But I suppose they pick him because there's no one else, but someone's going to come through. Well,
they've got Nico Sula, and they have got some young centre-backs who they've bought, but if there's no one ready... And the thing that I am worried about for next year is who's going to beat them, because now they've added Leroy Sané. If they add another centre-back, they'll probably go get Upamecano from Leipzig. Like, that could be an option for them. They've got unlimited money, really, as well in Germany. But if they go get another centre-back, I can't see anyone beat them next year. Man City aren't going to beat that.
Is Leroy Sané going to make a big difference, that team? Do you think?
Yes. On that, he's better. He's an upgrade on every winger there is there. He's better than Gnabry. He's better than Coutinho. He's better than everyone. He's better than Muller, really.
No.
He is.
He's not. We'll have the same conversation next year. I mean, he started off well with City, and then he sort of faded away.
But every time he played for City, he was the best winger there. He was better. He should have kept Sterling out of the team, really. I think he's better.
Play both of them.
You can't. Well, to be fair, you could have Muller on the right, Sané on the left.
Two wingers and Aguero in the middle.
Oh right,
Don't put Sterling in the middle.
You're on about City now, yeah. Well, they did. They played him on the right, and he was brilliant. Yeah. Right, he's just a great player.
Yeah, but I think
and he's still so young.
You can't disrespect Thomas Muller. He's been doing it for years. I just like the guy.
No, I'm not saying he's better in terms of his career. He's obviously too young to say that. I'm just saying that right now we'll probably give him more options. And down the left with Alphonso Davies, imagine being a right back trying to cover Alphonso Davies and Leroy Sané. Yeah. Good luck there. You're not gonna stop that many times, are you?
We'll see how Sané does anyway. I mean, it does help he's German as well, so he's
exactly. He doesn't have to learn a language. So.
Yeah, exactly. No, good. Good luck.
Gone back home.
I thought he was a great City player. I don't know why he's leaving. I don't know why they let him go.
Well, because he might just want to go back to Germany.
Yeah, playing the best team.
But why not? Because he was going to go last summer when Bayern were interested, but City held on to him. Then he just ran his contract down, and they've like you said, maybe Bayern came knocking. He was like, might be the team he always wanted to play for. So
are we tipping Bayern to win it then?
What, this year or next year?
This year.
This year, yeah. Well, for me, it's just a question of how many.
And do you reckon they'll be playing
going to win by
PSG in the final?
I'm actually with you. I think it could be an all German final.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think as much as I like Thomas Tuchel, and he was good at Dortmund and he's been good at PSG. Something about that team, they just don't seem to
chokers.
It always seems one step too far for PSG. No matter how much they've spent, I can't see them getting that far.
Mbappe's key though, great player.
Mbappe, if they didn't have Mbappe, they wouldn't. I don't think they would have made it into the knockout rounds.
We'll see what his fitness is like for the semi-final, and because if he's playing, they've got a chance. If not, I don't think they'll do it. But let's say Bayern by 2, and that's the prediction. Don't put any money on it yet.
So you're not saying the team. You're just saying Bayern by 2, whoever they play.
Bayern will be all German final. Bayern by 2.
Okay, right. I'll hold you to that. I will actually. I will agree. I'll say it's going to be Bayern Leipzig, but I think it's going to be by 3 or 4.
All right, there you go.
I'm actually but we'll have to see. We'll revisit that, and then So just to finish off the football, we just thought we'd give a general scope of next year's Premier League.
I want to talk about Man United last night because you're a Man United fan.
I was going to gloss over that, but he's caught me out on that.
Don't swear when you mention Man United. Only I do that.
No, that was just me watching him last night. It was. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, I know it's Europa League. It would have been nice to get a trophy.
Cup.
It's a tin cup. No one really. It's a Mickey Mouse league. Let's be honest. Which Sevilla just love. They just love to dominate it. They won't do anything in the Champions League, but they'll probably end up winning it against either Inter Milan or Shakhtar.
Sevilla can't wait to get knocked out of the European Champions League so they can win. They can win their cup. I think they've got their own engraver.
I think they should just rename it the Sevilla Cup. Yeah, and then everyone just plays. Yeah, but United, same defensive frailties again. What are they doing at the back? Both times it was just defensive mistakes from fullbacks. I mean, Maguire in the first goal isn't actually looking where the defense. He's looking at no one. And Brandon Williams he's had twisted blood. He's going all over the shop.
Brandon Williams a bit young, still learning. He's a bit slow.
Bit green. He still looks like a good player.
Wan-Bissaka, I think, is going to be a great player, but not yet. He will be a great player. Maguire is obviously just like a brick wall in the middle, and just knock it over him.
He's a bit,
But I think that game could have gone either way.
He's a bit cumbersome, isn't he, Harry Maguire?
I think Man United weren't unlucky. I think it was a fair result. It could have gone either way. And a couple of years ago, when I didn't like Man United because they were winning everything, I got a bit of pity for him now. Ferguson's gone. Manager-wise, I'm not sure about Solskjaer still. I think I don't think he's a manager yet. He might be, or he might just disappear.
I think he's more of a coach.
I don't know what he is, but I don't think he's a proper manager. But he might blossom. I don't know. But I think 2-1, fair result. In the old days, I would have wanted Man United to lose. Don't know why, but this time,
they were just too good back in the day. But Man United last night, it was just painful because there were so many chances.
You.
50 in the 15-minute spell after half time, there was so many chances, but still questions over Rashford and his decision making in the final third.
Rashford. What did I say to you last night? If you give him too much time to think, he blows it. If he just does something on spec, he's great. But Rashford again, he's overhyped. Yeah. I think Martial is the class act there, but he's obviously he's up and down, and he's a bit surly. He just needs to enjoy his football a bit more.
Like
Martial.
I said, when Pogba's playing, he seems to enjoy it. When Pogba's not playing, he's like, I've got to play with these guys,
But Martial, give him the ball, and if he runs at people, you can't stop him.
He looks so good when he's running at people because defenders just seem to back off all the time. They seem scared when he's running because
he's fast. He's got the touch. I mean, that touch he put through yesterday
for the penalty. Another penalty. 22nd of the year for Man United.
Yeah, they deserve every bit of help they can get.
It's like Tesco's, every little helps, to be honest, mate, with Man United this season.
So Rashford, the jury's out on Rashford.
But like going back to your point where you said give him too much time, there was that right at the end of the first half, and it's in injury time of first half, and the ball we're on the break, and he does like 2 step overs, tries to do a ball roll, and just falls over his own feet.
Comedy gold.
And you're right. Sometimes he does get flustered by having that much time. He doesn't know what the right ball is, but it'll come with time. I still think we need to keep him on the left wing. Yeah. I think he's not as good as a striker as Martial is.
I take Martial over him every time. Yeah, which I think everyone would, apart from obviously maybe his Rashford's mother. Yeah. And I think your wingers. I don't know. Brandon, he's not a winger, but
Greenwood and Rashford.
Greenwood's going to be great, but again, he's still learning. I think the two key guys are in the middle. I mean, obviously Pogba and Fernandes, and when those two guys are clicking, Man United could beat anyone. But
sometimes you just look at the screen like, how on earth is Pogba doing what he's doing at his height? And
he plays at his own. He was playing at his own pace last night, but he was making people look foolish. And he did a great game. Fernandes has still got the touch. He's had a great start. Let's see what happens next year. They're definitely going to have a chance of winning the title next year.
Do you?
With those two, unless Pogba's agent puts him in a sack and carries him off somewhere else.
Who knows what that crazy man Mino Raiola is going to do?
He loves money.
He loves money, yeah. Well, he got 24 million off the first Pogba deal,
so I'd sell him again. I'd get make him unhappy, but that's it. It's agents isn't necessarily evil now. For some reason, you need an agent. I suppose they do some good for the player.
Yeah, I think the COVID break was the best thing for Man United because I feel like now that he's come back, we could keep him. I think before it was looking more and more likely that he was going to leave in the summer, and now he's played with Bruno. The team looks pretty good. We just need to. There's still areas of weakness. I still think left back Luke Shaw and Brandon Williams. I don't know if they're really the answer. Luke Shaw's had a better season, but is he still the answer that we need at left back? He's not Patrice Evra or the quality left backs we've had in the past. Right back Wan-Bissaka's quality. I think you keep him every day of the week. He's the only defender I'd keep out of that back four, personally. Maguire, jury's out on Maguire. Who knows if he needs a partner, if he needs a better centre back next to him. Who knows? Lindelof, I don't think is good enough.
No, Lindelof's old school. I think you just need a partner for Maguire now, someone with a bit of pace, and then those two could be something. I like Luke Shaw. I think he's a trier, puts in a shift. Always looks a bit confused, but I think he's going to be a good player, and you can depend on him. Yeah. And it's a shame about the little Welsh winger they've got.
Oh, what? Danny James.
What happened to him?
Well, he had a great start, and then everything outside of August has been a calamity. Calamity Jane.
What is that?
Calamity James. There we go. That's what we're going to call him now.
We'll call him. I'm sure you'll accept that. But
no, yeah.
He's a one-trick pony, which no disrespect to him. He runs fast. Yeah. He runs faster than anyone else.
I still think he's got potential, but he needs a loan. I don't think he's close to the first team right now. I think he's better than Greenwood. Don't think he's got as much skill or attributes as Greenwood.
Greenwood's a better player, but you use James the right way, which is basically knock the ball for him to run really faster. He's going to beat everyone, but he don't seem to do that. But he doesn't seem to want to take anyone on anymore. No. So, but I don't know if his confidence has gone. But
I'd give him a season away, just loan him out, get him some confidence back. Hopefully, maybe loan him out to like a Celtic or someone. Yeah. Somewhere where he can play some first team football. I wouldn't go down to the Championship though. I wouldn't send him back there because you just get carried away with the open defences and
send him to a team that plays the football you want him to play though. So because his talent is basically running really fast.
A team that likes to play on the break, maybe a Leicester.
Yeah,
I don't think Leicester would take him.
You could do that to him.
Well, playing Brandon Rodgers' system, that would be be interesting.
So next year, as I say, I think Man United have got a chance. I think Chelsea have got 2 new players now. Lampard,
Hakim Ziyech, and Timo Werner. They may have Kai Havertz as well from Bayer Leverkusen. So
they're definitely top 4.
You definitely. I think it's going to be the same top 4. I don't think.
Who's going to win it though? Take your Man United hat off.
Yeah, right, okay.
And let's just look at the facts.
Probably Liverpool again.
Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah, but they got Henderson. They'll have Henderson back next year. They'll probably reinforce their things, and I think Jurgen Klopp's the best manager in Europe. Great manager,
but I think I've heard a rumour they're not signing anyone else. They're not signing any fresh blood, so I think static. And I do
think they need some fresh. I think they need another centre back alongside Virgil. Because Joe Gomez, I don't think, is the viable option for them going forward.
I think Virgil can make anyone look good.
That is true,
and I think he's a great defender. He makes the odd mistake, but he's he does a lot of work. But I think the problem with Liverpool is they got no creativity. Yeah.
But the thing is, they looked so strong up to January. They were just clearly the class of the Premier League, and then something happened after Christmas and January, and they just fell off.
Well, Robertson stopped bombing up the wing. He still bombs up the ring. They pass it back. And they just seem to change the game. But I think they need someone in the middle. Like Man United have got Pogba and Fernandes. Who have Liverpool got in the middle?
They haven't really got anyone.
They haven't got anyone. No. They've got Oxlade, who's like a 6 out of 10 player.
Yeah.
Who else they got? Henderson.
Henderson's a trial.
He'll put a shift in him. He's a stopper.
Henderson's just a try. He's like he's the new Scott Parker.
Yeah. So, but who's going to play the ball? It's all right having Salah.
Because there are options. There are options in midfield. Of what? Fabinho, Jordan Henderson, Keita. Like I said, they haven't got any creativity. They haven't got a Pogba or Fernandes.
Well, they need to get them then.
But they might be getting Thiago Alcantara from Bayern, the old Barca midfielder.
Yeah.
So there's a good bit of creative output from deep in midfield, though. So basically, where Fabinho / Henderson play is where he plays. So
maybe City to win the league then.
Okay, City to win the league. Yeah.
Man United maybe to come second.
Second. Ooh,
Chelsea third. Liverpool fourth.
Fourth. You're gonna go.
Yeah.
See, I'm gonna go. I think it's just going to be a repeat. I think it's going to be the same top 4, same positions. I think Liverpool, City, United, Chelsea. But I do think City will be closer to Liverpool. I think United will be closer to United and Chelsea will be closer to both of the top 4. But there we go. Okay. And what about Fulham coming up?
Yeah, they'll go back down again.
Yeah, I don't think they.
That's what they do.
I don't think Scott Parker's.
And maybe Leeds will go back down as well.
Nah, Leeds will do like Wolves and Sheffield. They'll just go up. They'll be like a top half team, I think.
I think they'll be okay, Leeds, until the season starts.
Yeah, I think Slaven Bilic will lose his head again. And he'll go down with West Brom.
He might have to get his boots on.
He might have to in that midfield.
But yeah, West Brom another yo-yo team up and down.
Yeah,
so.
Fulham and West Brom to go down, I think, next year.
Yeah.
Early doors, and I'm going to also nail Palace on. There's too many years they've got away with.
I like Palace.
Do you?
Yeah, when they're good, and when they ain't. I just like
they're entertaining to watch either way because they're either going to concede a lot or they're going to play good football.
And Woy,
Miocic.
He's got to go, hasn't he?
He's got to go.
He doesn't know he faces the wrong way. I don't know what he's doing half the time. Strange.
Who would you be your third team early doors to go down? Villa, West Ham, Newcastle.
No, West Ham would be all right.
Brighton, any of those?
Maybe Newcastle could maybe go down.
Well, they haven't got the investment.
Well, it's gone, isn't it?
Yeah,
they're back to nothing.
Yeah, I think there was a bit behind the scenes. They don't want those owners coming in. I think.
Yeah,
possibly.
So they were. So they're not going to be happy, are they?
No. So you think? So who's your bottom three early doors then?
Leeds, Fulham.
And well, you said West Brom, so you're going to go all three that came up, three back down.
It could be, yeah.
Right.
Those first two, and then any of the other ones I mentioned, Newcastle and
any of them.
Yeah, right. Any of them could go down. They've all got the ability to go down.
Okay, and just to finish off, Kevin De Bruyne is the Premier League Player of the Year. Unsurprisingly for me, couldn't really give it to anyone else, could you? Great
player.
Yeah.
Passes the ball. Belgian.
Right, great in-depth analysis here.
Lots and lots of industry. He works hard.
Yeah.
Nothing phases him.
No.
What effect did he have on City? They won the League Cup.
Yeah, they had the league. Yeah, that's the only trophy they won this year.
So they blew the Premiership and the Champions League. So for impact, I would say Van Dijk.
Really?
I think he won. I think without Van Dijk, Liverpool don't win the Championship.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, he did win it last year when they didn't win it, so I think
they had it now.
I think but I think he had a more spectacular.
He wouldn't have to post it back then, would he?
Yeah, he could just keep the same trophy. Yeah. I think De Bruyne just he had a better overall year than Van Dijk, even though they only won one title. I think he was the best player.
I think De Bruyne is a great player. Yeah. I think it's nip and tuck him and Van Dijk. I mean, Van Dijk had a great impact again. Which when they bought Van Dijk, Liverpool, it turned him around. And I think with De Bruyne, if you had a team and you're a manager, would you take him over Hazard?
Easily take him over Hazard. I still don't rate Hazard as highly as everyone else did.
He's a great player. Having a bit of a problem this year, wouldn't he?
Well, injuries and Zidane's crazy tactics probably. That was the thing that's keeping him out. The fact that if you don't score in like 2 games, I think he drops you.
Yeah,
that's not his actual tactics, but that's what it looks like.
Zidane's always been
strange, as we've seen with Bale.
Yeah, Zidane, great player, but anyone who headbutts someone in the chest, he's not all there.
No, you're right. He's a bit of a loose cannon sometimes, and might have been a bit trigger happy with Hazard to just bench him. But I mean, Hazard doesn't help himself sometimes, the shape he comes in. But he was a great player for Chelsea. I mean, they would have been languishing further down the league if he wasn't there. He had an amazing time there. But
where is Bale? Is anyone looking for
golf?
Him?
Look at any golf course in Madrid, and you'll probably find him.
Yeah, he needs to do something.
He's in the links.
Unless he's just given up on football now. I
think he's just given up on Madrid.
Going to turn himself into a bank.
Well, like you said, he's just going to sit there. He doesn't mind if he's going to collect his checks. He said it's Wales, golf, Madrid in that order. You know, those are his priorities. And if that's what he thinks, and fair play, deliver us a Euros, and we don't care.
Well, maybe he'll come back to Britain and play for someone then.
Well, apparently they've ruled out the Spurs move this year. But
if I was him, I wouldn't go back to Spurs.
No,
I would definitely try a new challenge somewhere. But I wouldn't go to China. I wouldn't go to Spurs. I'd play some proper football.
Well, what are the options? Come to Man United?
Man United would be good.
No, we could do him with him on the right. That would actually probably sort out all our problems.
Yeah, you'd have to sell a few. He's expensive, though, isn't he?
I think they'd be more than willing to let him go. We just got rid of Sanchez. There's the wage. You know, I think they'd be more than willing to get rid of him for. Well, they don't want him. So they maybe just get rid of him for a very small fee. I mean, I know they bought him for 100 odd million.
Well, there you are. You heard it here first. Bale, Man United legend.
Man United legend, or another Welsh winger to.
Yeah, but to answer your other question, De Bruyne very good. Van Dijk could have easily won that as well.
I think it was between those two, wasn't it? Really, I know they said Henderson, but
Henderson?
Yeah.
Someone say Henderson?
No, that was the book. He won the Writers' Player of the Year.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Again, nothing against Henderson. What a great team player. But no.
No, it's
not that much impact. And he's got a captain's armband on, but and he'll always look as though he's giving 110%, but he's never going to make you turn the telly on, is he?
No, yeah, you're not going to pay £5 on a hot dog, as you say, to go watch football.
That's what I always say. I will always pay £5 and demand a free hot dog if there's good football. That's what I pay. I'll pay a £5 to get him.
And the only people you said you pay for are Messi and Ronaldo.
Yeah. I might go to 6 and maybe a beef burger, but
that's pushing the boat out.
I want feeding, I want entertaining.
Yeah, like you said. But yeah, so thank you very much. That was a good chat.
Worries.
Yeah. Always.
Yeah. As I said before, give my fee to charity.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for coming on. It's been good, and yeah, that's our football roundup for the week.
Thanks very much. Do you want to lift home?
So obviously the decent proportion of the England-Pakistan test was rained off this week, and there hasn't been much progress. So I thought I have a special guest here, Harry. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Good. It's nice to have you. So I thought we could just talk a bit, it's sort of cricket in general, maybe a bit of how you got into cricket growing up, and who your sort of personal heroes were, because I know you're a big cricket fan, obviously, so it'd be quite nice to hear your perspective on maybe the state of the game these days compared to when you were growing up in India watching cricket.
Well, as I'm sure you know by now, and most of the world knows, that India is completely cricket mad as a nation. You've seen the crowds that even in this country, when you have a one-day international where India plays, the stadia are chock-a-block. When I started growing up, the biggest difference was that cricket was not the kind of totally professional game.
No.
There are significant differences in why people play cricket today. People play cricket because they love the game. People play cricket because there's a reasonable amount of money in it. Whereas the only motivation in the days when I saw cricket as a young lad was that you wanted to play cricket because it was such a wonderful game.
Yeah.
But that's probably the biggest difference I've noted. The second thing that I've found, comparing cricket in India when I grew up as compared to cricket here, having watched youngsters, including my children, being coached, etc., was that in India there was always the tendency to let people play their natural game.
Yeah.
There are several instances where I've noted where these quirky things that some cricketers have, which are magical, are simply being trained off. They're simply being trained out, and they're taught to play copybook cricket.
I guess a bit like when you look at Steve Smith, not many coaches would say, if you got a typical batting coach to look at Steve Smith, they'd probably be like, God, I need to change so many things about this.
Absolutely.
But then if you took that away from Steve Smith, he wouldn't be the player that he is.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And I can still remember, early 1970s, my first exposure to cricket. Believe it or not, we didn't have televisions at home in those days, and my aunt, who worked for All India Radio, which is the national radio company, she managed to get us 2 special passes to go in and sit in the radio station to watch the first black and white cricket match.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a spectacular experience. The whole idea that you could actually visualize an entire cricket game listening to it on a transistor radio is gone now. Nobody knows that experience anymore. But for us kids, that was the ultimate. We're all crowded around a little transistor radio, half a dozen of us who are all cricket fanatics, and we'd sit and listen to the game. But what happens at the same time is you're imagining the whole game in your head.
Yeah.
And that was a totally unique experience of its own.
And who played in that game? Do you remember?
Yes, of course. It was England-Pakistan game in Pakistan, which was broadcast in India.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and it was a bittersweet moment. The fact that we were able to watch a game live was the sweet bit of that experience, and the fact that India was getting slaughtered by Pakistan was the bitter bit about it.
So it was India-Pakistan?
India-Pakistan.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
So, they were the greats in Indian cricket, some of the greatest in my eyes as a youngster. You had Bishan Bedi, the spinning quartet. You had Bishan Bedi, Bhagwan Chandrasekhar, Prasanna. They were the trio, the awesome spinning trio of India. And of course, many of you will remember Sunil Gavaskar playing. And, Sunil Gavaskar used to open the bowling for India. I don't know how many people remember that now, because we didn't have any fast bowlers in India when I was a youngster. So Sunil Gavaskar would come running from halfway across, from the boundary, and bowl slow, medium pace. And after the first 3 or 4 overs, the spinners would come on, because the spinners were the guys who stopped India from losing. They did win a few games, but the primary intention was, we can't lose.
Yeah.
We've got to draw this
Very
game.
contrasting from today's India.
Exactly, yeah. Today's India is an India full of aggression, full of pride.
Yeah.
And it all came about, I think the turning point in India's cricket strategy, probably after a magnificent tour of the West Indies, in which they beat the West Indies. I think it's the first time ever. And you must remember, this was the West Indies with deadly bowlers, deadly batsmen.
Yeah.
A spectacular team, the team that ascended the heights that very few other teams could hope to
the
ascend.
Clive Lloyd era?
It was just before the Clive Lloyd era, coming into the Clive Lloyd era. And it was just the most amazing team that you could ever imagine. The first ever game that I saw was when Roy Fredericks was playing. I mean, people don't remember him at all there, but he was a wonderful player. There were instances when people would despair in India. People would say, oh my God, when is India ever going to win? Whereas if you go to a cricket match in the M.A. Chidambaram Stadium, it used to be called the Chepauk Stadium in those days. And if
That's stadium in your hometown.
That's the stadium in my hometown of Chennai. What used to be magical was that every single person who came to watch that cricket match knew everything about cricket.
Yeah.
There would be people who would tell you stats from 20 years ago. They'll say, "Oh, Vinu Mankad played this particular game and scored so many runs in so many overs." I mean, the stats would come pouring out of people, lay people who were sitting around you, and the camaraderie in a stadium was just magical. It didn't matter which team played well. You could have the opposition play a fantastic innings, and they would all stand up and applaud. And it wasn't a partisan crowd. You often see, because of the advent of one-day games where there's flag waving and everything else, this was a much more sedate crowd who appreciated both teams.
Yeah.
They appreciated talent rather than the colour of your flag or the colour of your outfit on the field. And I think that was a different era where people appreciated cricket for its beauty. Let's not mince any words. Cricket is one of the most beautiful games that you can see.
Definitely.
Lots of people talk about football and rugby, but in my eyes, cricket is one of the, especially Test cricket, is one of the most strategic games.
And people call it a dying sect of cricket these days, Test cricket. But I think at the moment, especially with the resurgence of sport following, this COVID-19 pandemic, I think Test cricket is going to come back in a big way, because especially these tests, the England-West Indies test and the England-Pakistan test, there's so much talent in test teams at the moment around the world. I think it could
might
be
slightly disagree with you on that. What the short form of the game has done is it's decreased the pool of players who can stay for a whole day and bat out the day in difficult circumstances, in weather where the ball is swinging wildly. That crop of players has shrunk quite a lot.
Yeah. But I guess on the flip side, you've also got almost like a whole new style. Shots we see in Test cricket now, like the reverse sweep and things like that. They just weren't shots you ever saw.
You'd be chastised if you played a reverse sweep in Test cricket. People would say this guy's a nutcase.
Yeah,
and it was the likes of some of the players. For example, KP. Was the guy who said, "Well, I'm prepared to play these." He said,
"I'll play the shots that get the runs on the board."
Absolutely, and the Sri Lankan magic of
Dilshan,
the Dilshan scoop and everything else. I mean, these were unknown, and they would rarely, if ever, be used in Test cricket.
Yeah,
but that's how games evolve, don't they?
In the first Test just gone last week, we saw Josh Butler score a lot of runs. Because the reverse sweep he just played it so well, and they couldn't really set a field to defend against it, because obviously they got a leg spinner bowler, and that's not the field that they're trying to play, defend against.
Yeah.
But if when you were growing up, who were your sort of cricket heroes growing up?
Well, I had so many. Again, I belong to the era where you enjoyed cricket for the beauty of it rather than who played in it.
Yeah.
But of course, you had your local heroes, and you had my heroes were people who are not as well known now as they were then.
No.
Gundappa Vishwanath was one of my great heroes. He's a magnificent batsman, beautiful style. People would say he is like watching David Gower, except that he was right-handed. He had the most elegant style of playing. He was effortless. He was really not fit at all. He was a nice little round podgy guy, but played the most magnificent cricket. And I told you about Bhagwan Chandrasekhar, the leg spinner. He was a magician with the ball. He didn't spin the ball very much. He bowled flippers, and he was quite a fast leg spinner.
Yeah.
And it was magic to watch him work on a batsman and then get him out. It was just wonderful to watch him. And that's what tactical cricket is, what enticed a lot of people into the game. So when you're picking out the nuances as to how they've trapped this guy, how they've sort of tempted him to go out and play a big shot and get caught in long on or whatever, that's the strategy behind cricket. That's what intrigues a lot of people.
I guess as well, obviously, that era of cricket, the one-day game wasn't a thing.
There weren't any. I mean, you had provincial cricket in India, which would be 3-day cricket or 4-day cricket. But there would always be 4 innings.
Yeah, like the limited overs form of the game.
The limited overs format of the game was very small. And, the cricket pundits would poo-poo it and say, oh, it's rubbish.
Yeah.
But you have to pay credit to the fact that limited overs cricket is probably what kept
cricket alive
from the financial perspective.
Yeah, because obviously they've got all these massive tournaments,
Well, when I was a youngster, there would be people in who worked in offices or hospitals, whatever. They would take 5 days off to go and watch a cricket match every single day. So I used to take time off school, or usually it happened during the winter holidays.
Yeah.
And so, I would just buy, it's like a season ticket. You buy a ticket which would cover 5 days of the game. You sat there and watched it. And, who would not want to go to a cricket stadium and watch Gordon Greenwich play?
Or I know you loved the West Indies team of that era.
The West Indies were my heroes, which is why it was heartbreaking to see them going through that awful patch when they were beaten by just about every team on earth. And of course, when Brian Lara came, it went through a resurgence, but it never reached the dizzy heights.
Not of the 80s and late
Haynes
70s.
And Greenwich and Viv Richards and the fast bowlers, Marshall and Big Bird. It was just a magical time in cricket where they were invincible. And of course, the world's enemy was England at that time, because everybody wanted to beat England because they were the ones who founded the game. They were the ones,
and they'd always been the best at it.
Yeah, they were always
that point.
For over a century they were unbeatable because they were so good at what they did. They had a fantastic, huge crop of players they could pick from because of village cricket and county cricket.
Yeah.
So everybody's enemy was, we've got to beat England. We've got to beat England, and that was the greatest. I'm sure you've seen on TV when West Indies won their first ever cricket series here. West Indies just exploded, and the euphoria of that lasted probably for a decade.
Yeah, well, even now they're all worshipped in
many parts of the world.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, they are.
I know you got to meet a lot of your heroes when you went to watch the World Cup in Barbados.
Yes, in I think it was 2007.
2006 or 2007. I can't remember.
I was unlucky enough to find that India and Pakistan didn't feature in the last rounds. They were all beaten by much lesser teams because, again, I suspect there's a lot of cockiness and overconfidence.
Yeah.
How can Ireland beat me, or how can Bangladesh beat me? I'm in the Indian team. I'm in the Pakistani team.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. So when we went to Barbados, it was a bit of an anticlimax because instead of watching maybe India play Pakistan, I watched Bangladesh play Ireland. But that was a wonderful game of cricket. We enjoyed it. But as a fallout of all of that, there were cruises cruise ships where people were meant to be accommodated in. It was luxury accommodation in cruise ships, none of which ever happened because the whole of the Indian Pakistan, the entire subcontinent, people who are scheduled to come for the World Cup final, they said, well, these teams are not playing, we're not going to bother. They just simply let their tickets go, and but it gave a fantastic opportunity for the local population. The West Indians are every bit as mad about cricket as the Indians are, and they were able to buy tickets for $15 when normally it would cost $100.
Yeah.
But also for me personally, it was the realization of a dream that I never ever thought I would have.
Yeah.
Because I went on a cruise where the cruise was called The Legends of West Indian Cricket, and I got to meet some of my greatest heroes. Sir Garfield Sobers, the Reverend Wesley Hall.
Yeah.
And it was just, I sat and had a drink with Big Bird. How many people can lay claim to that? This was in a bar in Barbados, just on the off street, a tiny little bar. There were a bunch of us who sat and had a drink with Joel Garner.
Yeah.
How many people could lay claim to that? It was just wonderful. So I met Gordon Greenidge and Desmond Haynes. I met people that I never thought I would ever meet in my life. In close quarters, sat with them. I've watched them all dancing. It was just the
dream come true for
it was the ultimate dream.
Yeah.
Cricket-wise, it was the ultimate dream, and I'm so grateful I went for that tour. I went with all of my friends who were all wonderful cricketers, in addition to being cricket fanatics.
Yeah.
They're all great cricketers. We played beach cricket with the local population on the beaches in Barbados, and it was just everything that you could ever want in a cricket tour. It was just, so as you walk on the road, you'll meet some legend who'd come. People mistook me for Inzamam ul Haq because I had a beard and I looked vaguely like him. And there were people coming off the street saying, "Come on, Inzi, we want to buy you a drink." It was just, where you could write a book about that tour. It was just so magical.
But yeah, it's one of them things. Get to meet your childhood heroes. It's always a big.
As soon as you see these great people, you're transformed back to your childhood, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the magic of it. You immediately go back and say, "Wow, I saw these guys." When I was a young lad, I saw them playing, and I used to say, I can't even get remotely close to them. And here I am, sitting and having a drink with the guys.
Well, I mean, it's just unforgettable, really. So you still remember it? You still remember it now?
Well, I'm sure you remember. I was more enthusiastic when I took you for a cricket match in Sapphire Gardens. I insisted that you ran halfway around the stadium to get an autograph from Viv Richards, because that was always my dream.
I had to ask him 3 times to get it. I've chased him the whole way around the rim of the pitch,
and what I was
finally got it.
And what I was delighted was that you were ready to do it, because you didn't know who Viv Richards was.
I had no idea. I was about 8 years old.
You were 8 years old, but I had to, but you could see the excitement in me. As soon as I said, "Oh, I can't believe I've got Viv Richards' autograph," and it was just a magical moment.
That was the first cricket match I ever went to.
Yeah.
West Indies versus no.
Yeah,
it was West Indies versus New Zealand.
Yeah.
Was it the?
That's right.
Was
it was
it
a one-day
Champions
international
Trophy.
I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been the Champions Trophy.
Yes, it was some tournament. I can't remember why, but it was held in Sapphire Gardens.
I'm sure it was.
I can't remember why it was
one of the World Cups. Anyway,
I can't remember why it was held in Sapphire Gardens, but I remember it being held there.
But it was. But I can remember. I think you were feeding off my excitement, and that's probably what a lot of children did. They couldn't understand the game very much, but they could see their parents or their peers being so excited about it. That prompted them to go and learn more about cricket. And say, what is it that Dad is so excited about, or what is it that Uncle is so excited about?
Yeah.
And of course, remember, my introduction to cricket was none of these. My introduction to cricket was playing on the street with a cricket ball with a bunch of my friends. Mm-hmm. 2 of them went on to play cricket at a national level, but we started life playing cricket with a battered old bat, a plank of wood for stumps, and a tennis ball, and it was chucking the ball, not bowling the ball, it was chucking the ball. So it came at you at 80 miles an hour, and even though it's not a cricket ball, if it got you, because there's no protection or anything, when I started playing proper cricket with a proper kit and a proper cricket ball, well, the first thing I did was somebody bowled a beamer at me, and I broke my cheekbone. And but that was part and parcel of it. You got battered by the ball.
Yeah,
but that's
before helmets.
That's how you learnt the basics of how to defend, how to play on the back foot if you're an opener. I never played cricket to a high level or anything like that, but I had my fair share of knocks and injuries. What was remarkable, the change, is things like fielding. Jonty Rhodes.
Yeah, he was, one of the first,
one of the greatest ever
to be heralded as, he is, his contribution to the side, not only with the, in the other aspects of the game, but his fielding wins games. He's one of the first ones to be.
And what, I can remember in the Indian team of yesteryears, there were 2 or 3 magnificent fielders, and because they were so rare, they stood out, and people remember them for their fielding more than anything else. Like there was a chap called Eknath Solkar, and Solkar was just the most bewitching fielder that you'd find. Lightning quick. There wasn't anybody like him at that time.
But nowadays, when you look at most international teams, they're all tremendous athletes. They're nearly all extremely competent in the field. It's rare you see teams that win games that aren't fantastic fielding sides.
You simply can't do it in the present day. But I remember speaking to my uncles, 2 uncles who played cricket. One went with India to the Australian team, although he never got a game for the Australian tour. Although he never got a game, Sivaramakrishnan was quite a wonderfully elegant left-arm batsman, and his elder brother Ram Narayan unfortunately missed out getting into the Indian cricket team because of the numbers of spinners. The greatest. He was in the era of Bishan Bedi and Prasanna, and so he was easily as good as them.
Yeah,
but it just didn't happen for him. But he's a cricket pundit. He writes books on cricket. He writes extensive blogs on cricket, and they just by going and watching them play, you imbibe knowledge.
Yeah,
the one-day game doesn't give you the opportunity. There's a lot of fanfare, and you jump and you.
It's a great spectator sport.
It's a fantastic, and it's a family sport.
Yeah,
a 5-day game. You see very few families. How many children have in the present day will have the patience to sit through 5 days of cricket? It just simply doesn't happen. But in those days, you got your knowledge of cricket. You didn't have the internet those days. You couldn't Google something.
No.
But you asked around and said, what was this guy's score in the last 5 games? And pat would come the answer.
Yeah.
So the differences are in so many levels as far as how cricket enthusiasm grows in a society. Nowadays it's the internet era, it's the cyber technology that is driving things forward.
And I guess when you have tournaments like the IPL and things like that, where back in the day you did have the superstars of cricket, but nowadays it's global superstars, billions of people tuning in to watch IPL games and World Cup games. It's massive money these days.
Yeah.
Whereas before it's not professional, like you said, when you first started watching cricket, big time professional cricket players weren't really a thing.
No.
Whereas now, you get massive salaries and bonuses and things like that.
The other thing that's changed as well as the concept of training. You see this elaborate training from this spectacular fitness, or even during, beefy, Ian Botham's age, they'd go out for a couple of pints the night before a test match, and they would have no problems doing that.
No.
You wouldn't survive in cricket if you did that in the present day.
Well, I think it's because now they're elite athletes.
Yeah, and it's a professional game. You're expected to perform at your peak at all times.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, and if one of the reasons given was that you're a party bloke, the likelihood is that, you will naturally be excluded from...
They probably wouldn't let you put a shirt on again if that was the reason.
That's right, yeah. And they say, sorry guys, you guys are not cut out for professional sport. And that's what happens. It's a much more serious sport.
Yeah, I think it's, like you said, whereas before it was kind of played to appreciate the beautiful game of cricket. Nowadays it's a lot more, winning and trophies. And
there's a lot more at stake.
And there's a lot more money. Like you said, there's a lot of money in cricket these days, especially on the subcontinent. There's a lot of money in cricket. I mean, there's a lot of money in cricket in England and Australia and
in India.
In India, there's
enormous money,
almost ludicrous sums of money,
crazy sums of money.
Billions of.
I don't begrudge them that.
No.
They provide entertainment. They provide employment.
I guess when you think 1 billion people in India watch cricket, it's the money's going to be high.
You go to any little village, there will be one TV where there'll be 50 people sitting and watching the game.
Yeah. And that's what's one of the nice things about, I think, the limited overs format of the game as opposed to the test form of the game. Is it's opened up the game to a lot more fans. Like, I have friends who say, I would never have gone to a cricket match, where it lasts all day, but now, they've got matches that just last an afternoon.
Yeah.
It's a lot different now, and it gets people into the game that probably wouldn't have been interested in it before.
Yeah. I'm just hoping that the real cricket buffs will still get to enjoy the beauty, the magic, and the complexity of Test cricket 10, 20 years from now.
I can't see Test cricket going anywhere.
It'll be terrible. It'll be a terrible, terrible loss for cricket as a body of sport.
Yeah.
If we lost Test cricket, or if we just head into 100 overs games, or
I agree. I mean, the Test cricket is the game that started it all.
Yeah.
That's where modern day cricket has its roots, and I think to lose Test cricket would be a great shame.
I was quite despondent when I went to see England play Sri Lanka a few years ago, and most of the stadium
was empty.
Was empty. It was a 5-day game, and it was very sad to see, because I'm sure, like any other performer, a professional sportsman will love the feeling that there is an entire stadium watching him.
Yeah.
And you have the home advantage, or you have the collective feel of the spectators feeding into your enthusiasm.
I guess it'd be a bit like saying, we're going to stop playing 15-on-15 rugby and we're only going to play sevens.
Yeah.
You would hate to see that from you lose one of the, because at the end of the day, I can't see Test cricket go anywhere, but I hope there's a resurgence in the
even in India, the home of big crowds. We do find Test cricket suffering now. I
guess it's just not where the money is, Test cricket in India. I mean, T20 and the limited
one day internationals, the 50 overs. I agree. I think, but what I believe is that there will be a sensible section of the populace which will say, well, this is not all about spectacular excitement, seeing 26s in an innings of 20 overs. That's not what I'm here to say. I'm here to enjoy that intricacy of cricket and watch what the field settings are, how the bowler and the captain interact, and say, okay, this guy is not a great hooker. Let's get somebody there mid-wicket, something, so that he mistimes something and holds.
And I guess sometimes just watching somebody construct a constructed 100 over 2 days with a beautiful shot selection. So it's something it's a nice spectacle.
It's a kind of Joe Root kind of innings. Joe Root is one of my current day heroes, and he plays a magnificent innings on his day when he's on song.
He's just spectacular
to watch. Absolutely. Michael Vaughan was another guy I always loved watching.
I loved that era of the 2005, 2000. I remember we went to watch the whole test in the whole 5 days in Cardiff in 2009, the first test of the Ashes, and that era of England players, I just loved watching those.
Wonderful.
When you had your Strausses and people like that, just they're beautifully constructed innings.
How could one forget the great Monty Panesar?
I know, we watched that. We watched that live.
Graham Swan and Monty Panesar.
It was Jimmy Anderson and Monty Panesar. We watched that live. We watched those two make that last wicket stand.
It's wonderful.
God, it's things like that. Those are great memories that you just can't get in other sports.
Well, that is the beauty.
Or other forms of the game.
I can remember almost every test match, some of the salient features. In 72, I saw Salim Durrani, who was another player that most people wouldn't have heard of now. He was a wonderful batsman, flamboyant character, who took a most amazing catch in Madras at the Chepauk Stadium. I can remember that. If you tell me, can you remember that blitzing 106 made by Chris Gale in this IPL game? I can't remember it. Whereas I could remember those salient games where even when there was a cricket match, India-Pakistan in Chennai again, which ended in a tie, and I can remember one of the cricket players who will remain nameless, who were family friends of ours, who played for the Indian team as a spinner. He came and hid in my parents' house in Madras because he was so terrified because they tied against Pakistan.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that's how deep emotions run in certain parts of the world.
But I agree with you, though, in it's the memorable moments from Test cricket. Like, it's a bit like that over that Freddie Flintoff bowled in the 2005 Ashes, just pinging in. He cut Ricky Ponting. Actually, no, that wasn't Freddie. It was the over he a wicket maiden got Ricky Ponting out.
Yeah.
Or, it's a bit... I think it was Steve Harmison. He hit Ponting on the helmet in that 2005 Ashes and cut his cheek.
Yeah.
It's things like that go down. Those set the tone. It's such a momentous victory for England, that 2005 Ashes series. It's things like that. You say those moments.
Nobody can forget Freddie Flintoff going and consoling on his knees, consoling the Australian batsman, saying, "Sorry, buddy, you lost."
It was a bit like when England were hoping for for bad light, and all the Australians came out with their sunglasses on, and all the fans in the stands, all there with their hats and sunglasses on, even though it's clouds and getting dark, and it's things like that you just don't get.
Yeah,
it's not saying that
there's not enough time.
I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm not saying. But that's exactly the point. The ODI games, the T20. It's not they don't lack. They're exciting to watch, but they lack the personalities that you get over a long Test series. A three Test series or five Test series. You over that period of time, you get for several weeks, you build up personalities and you get like the memorable moments, like in the 2009 Ashes with the Panesar Anderson stand at Cardiff.
I think that there have to be two different crops of players. There are very few players who span both and shine in both.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Stokes is one example.
Oh, yes.
He's one example. Ricky Ponting was excellent in the ODI format of the game.
Well, I mean,
Sachin's, Virender Sehwag, people like that.
Adam Gilchrist.
Gilchrist,
Matty
fantastic.
Hayden.
Yeah.
Look at Matty Hayden.
Look at him. We went from, and he's an unbelievable Test batsman, and then he went. He was playing for the Super Kings, Chennai Super Kings, the
IPL. Look at him.
Yeah, and he excelled.
He's magnificent.
The greats of the game, I think you often find, are the ones that can excel in all.
Yes.
Like that's why Sachin. He hit so many ODI hundreds, so many Test hundreds.
Yeah.
And like same with Ricky Ponting.
And of course,
Ricky Ponting, I would say, this is a bit off topic. Ricky Ponting to me doesn't get enough credit for how tremendous a batsman he was and captain.
Yeah,
one of the most effortless batsmen to watch, especially off the back foot. Nothing fazed him apart from Steve Harmison.
Yeah, and gritty. Never gave up. It was in your face. Never gave up.
Yeah.
And likewise, there are players who are not. They were not the Sachin Tendulkars and they were not the Ricky Pontings, but they commanded just as much respect. And the classic example would be Rahul Dravid. Rahul Dravid, sedate player, played in both formats of the game, ticked away, had a wonderful average in both formats of the game, was just sedate and calm. The flamboyance, he could switch it on if he wanted to.
Yeah.
If he needed to, like Yuvraj Singh, a flashy batsman, but never on par with the likes of Rahul Dravid.
I don't know if you agree, though, that era of Indian team, considering they never really won that many major events, such a fantastic team.
Fabulous team.
VVS Lakshman, Dravid, Sachin Tendulkar, and then you had the Saurav Ganggulis, the Sehwags.
Raina.
I mean,
they were
such a great team.
Every country in the world has got an era like that. Every major cricketing nation will have an era where there are unforgettables. And that changes with each generation. So the generation...
But I think looking back, we didn't realise how good that team was at the time until you look back at just how good some of those players were. I think they won the T20 World Cup, didn't they, that side? But when you look back at just how good that side was, it's I mean, everyone knows how good the Australian side was around that time because they won the
Just
World Cup,
everything.
they won everything.
Yeah.
And looking back, it's a bit kind of like stark contrast, the Australia of today.
Well, Steve Waugh's Australian team was probably the greatest ever cricket team.
Just so dominant.
Just ever. They just dominated for such a long time.
Just couldn't be beaten.
Matty Hayden, Gilchrist, Hussey. I mean, you could every player
Ponting.
Right down to
They're all legends of the game now.
Every one of them turned out to be super spectacular.
Glenn McGrath, how can you forget Glenn and Shane?
Warney.
Yeah.
So
I used to love watching Glenn McGrath bowl as a kid. It's just his action was so fluid and
metronomic,
effortlessly take wickets without really looking like he was putting much effort in.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, that era was fantastic.
Truly spectacular.
There were some great contests in that era.
Well, that's what Test cricket brings out to you. You know, it brings out these pairs. There's a bowler who's saying, I'm going to get that guy out every game for the next 5 games, the next 5 Test matches. I'm going to get that guy out. And you have these rivalries, which is wonderful. That's what does it. Or
even in the last Ashes series when you had, you know, the Stuart Broad and David Warner, you know, rivalry, he seemed to get him out every single test.
Yeah.
And you know, that rivalry that you get. And I think if you had to choose now though, who would you say the best player in the world is right now?
I think for me, all-round performance, Ben Stokes is.
Yeah, I agree. Ben Stokes.
You know, it'll take quite a while.
I don't think any team in the world has had an all-rounder quite like Ben Stokes for a long time. The only one that springs to mind is Jason Holder from the West Indies, but he had a kind of a disappointing series against England.
Yeah. Well, what is wonderful about Ben Stokes is consistency and the ability to sort of step up to the plate when things are desperate and he's needed.
Yeah.
And I think even the likes of Jos Buttler and Vokes, you know, they have now the depth in the English team to be able to step up to the plate when things look dire. You know, 129 for 5. You just look what happened in the last test that England won. You would never have thought England would have won that test.
No.
You know, 5 down, and there they go.
And then
Up
Butler and Wokes come in
and absolutely pummeled them into submission. You know, that is the England that I love to watch.
Yeah,
you know, the gutsy, gritty guys.
I think though a Ben Stokes innings when he's on form, it's just such a joy to watch. It's a joy to watch.
I agree.
I think I agree with what you say about him stepping up to the plate. You know, like he did in the World Cup, or like he did at Headingley last year. You know, he just will say, right, head down, let's get on with it and win the game.
Yeah, and it's all very well. You're on home ground. Your opening pair put on 120 runs, and you go there and smack a 60. That's not, you know, that is good.
It's useful runs, you know.
But if you're 85 for 6, and then you and another guy say, okay, well, let's steady the ship a little bit and go on to put 200 runs, 2 centuries. Now that's a match-changing, probably series-changing innings, isn't it?
Well, and that's exactly what he did in the West Indies series. Yeah. He came in, smacked 176.
Yeah.
I think he had Dom Sibley there for quite a while. He had a decent, ton. Yeah. But that's the kind of series-changing innings.
Exactly.
That's the potential that you have with Ben Stokes.
He has the potential to break the opposition for a long time.
Well, he has the potential to single-handedly win a Test match with bat and ball. Like everyone knows he's a fantastic batsman, but he's very handy with the ball as well.
Very handy.
Especially when it gets a bit knocked up. He gets us swinging all over the place both ways.
He's the intelligent bowler.
Yeah.
He's the intelligent bowler. He doesn't, he will work to what the weather is that day, what the pitch is, what the batsman is. He's thinking all the time, adjusting the field all the time, and bowling to his field, which is fundamentals of what you do as a great bowler.
Well, I think we are probably at the limit of our time. So, Dad, thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure to sit down and chat cricket with you.
Yes, well, I mean, I think we've done this so many times.
Yeah, might as well record it.
Might as well record it. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming. So I hope you guys all enjoyed that episode. Big thanks to my dad, Harry, and big thanks to Tony for coming on as well. Make sure you drop us a like, drop us a sub, drop us a rating if you're on iTunes or Spotify. And we will be back next week. Thank you very much.